8:38 AM 560 traffic center time, and Jim Talamonte.
Inbound Kennedy traffic is heavy. Nagel Circle, it is 55 minutes. O'Hare to downtown, 42 from Montrose, 43 in the Express. Outbound 44 minutes to the airport. Eden's 21 minutes, Lake Cook Junction. Eisenhower, 58 minutes, 390 to downtown, 40 from Manheim. Stevenson, an hour and 5 minutes, 355 to Lakeshore Drive. Ryan, 40 minutes, 95th to downtown. I-57, 25 minutes, 90 to the merge. Bishop Ford, 35. See delays on the eastbound Reagan Tollway. It's very heavy. Farnsworth to Ackley. Northbound Veterans Memorial to Dalton with Reagan Tollway. The Army Trail Toll to 290. Southbound 355 is tight. The Army Trail Toll to St. Charles. That's traffic. I'm Jim Talamonte on AM 560 The Answer.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next in our 1-hour heating and air conditioning weather center. Chilly day ahead. Snow shower this morning, followed by regular showers this afternoon. Maybe some ice right along that Wisconsin border, high 48. A couple of snow showers in the forecast overnight, low 27. 37 at O'Hare. Next news at 9. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Papa Nicholas Coffee. Papa Nicholas Coffee, a family tradition since 1897.
When you've got questions, he always has an answer. It's Sean Hannity, this afternoon at 2 on AM 560, The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. So Project Veritas was sent a tape of ABC News anchor Amy Robach on a hot mic on set talking about the Jeffrey Epstein saga, expressing her frustration that ABC News refused to greenlight reports that she had put together on Epstein from years ago.
Yeah, she got a key witness, the one who allegedly slept with Prince Andrew, who was underage at the time she was, and all this juicy stuff. The facts that people needed to know. And the network put the kibosh on it.
I've had the story for 3 years. I've had this interview with Virginia Roberts. We would not put it on the air. First of all, I was told, who's Jeffrey Epstein? No one knows who that is. This is a stupid story. Then the palace found out that we had her whole allegations about Prince Andrew and threatened us a million different ways. We were so afraid we wouldn't be able to interview Kate and Will that also quashed the story. And then Alan Dershowitz was also implicated in it because of the planes. She told me everything. She had pictures. She had everything. She was in hiding for 12 years. We convinced her to come out. We convinced her to talk to us. It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton. We had everything. I tried for 3 years to get it on, to no avail, and now it's all coming out, and it's like these new revelations, and I freaking had all of it. I'm so pissed right now. Like, every day I get more and more pissed because I'm just like, oh my God, what we had was unreal. Other women backing it up. Hey, yep. Brad Edwards, the attorney, 3 years ago, saying there will come a day when we will realize Jeffrey Epstein was the most prolific pedophile this country has ever known. And I had it all 3 years ago.
That day has come now. Does she believe that Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide?
So do I think he was killed? 100%. Yes, I do. Because he made his whole living blackmailing people. Yeah. There were a lot of men in those planes, a lot of men who visited that island, a lot of powerful men who came into that apartment.
And the setup for the killing?
And they made it seem as though he made that suicide attempt 2 weeks earlier, but his lawyers claimed that he was roughed up by his cellmate around the neck. That was all like to plant the seed. And then that's why I really believe it, really believe it.
Now, she, after this was aired by Project Veritas, recast her comments. I'm talking about Amy Robach, saying, I was caught in a private moment of frustration. I was upset. An important interview I conducted with Virginia Roberts didn't air, but she, defends her employer for. I'm sure she was motivated.
What she's saying there is, please don't fire me.
Right. She said it didn't. She said the same thing the company said. ABC News said it didn't meet our standards because they didn't independently verify the allegations that were being made against the Bill Clintons and the Randy Andys of the world.
Well, shame on ABC. I mean, they had a story about crimes that were being committed about against young women, and think of how many women's lives they could have saved if they had done this story 3 years ago.
Well, also
Because that would have put pressure on the authorities to act.
Also, ABC News is hypocrisy, right? The whole meet our standards of independent verification. Oh, you mean like the uncorroborated allegations against Brett Kavanaugh during his confirmation hearing? You mean like
showing what's saying Syria is under attack and it's really a Kentucky gun range?
Yeah. And not answering any questions about how you obtained that video, what vetting you did to assure its authenticity, and so on and so forth. So the whole ABC News didn't meet our standards stuff is pretty comical. But do we have anything here other than an indictment of ABC News? For more on this topic, we're pleased to be joined by George Parry, former federal and state prosecutor, regular contributor to the Philadelphia Inquirer and blogs at knowledgeisgood.net. He has written on the topic, the Jeffrey Epstein's death, the plot thickens. Indeed, it does. George, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Well, nice to be here.
So the Project Veritas video comes on the heels of Dr. Michael Baden stating that the findings of the autopsy were more consistent with ligature homicidal strangulation. You've worked with Dr. Michael Baden before as a prosecutor, and how did you receive his conclusions and then now this additional information from the news organization?
Well, Michael Baden is, in my estimation, the best forensic pathologist in the world. I've worked with a lot of forensic pathologists, but Baden is just the best of his profession, and I highly respect his opinion. And his analysis, he was hired by the Epstein family to attend the autopsy of Jeffrey Epstein and to investigate the circumstances surrounding his death. And as Dr. Baden told me in private communication, which I'm now at liberty to disclose, the chief medical examiner for the city of New York, who issued the report that the cause of death was hanging and the manner of death was suicide, the chief medical examiner was not present at the autopsy.
Oh, really?
And and the assistant medical examiner who actually did the autopsy agreed with Baden that there was not enough evidence as of the date of the autopsy to categorize this as a suicide. And the assistant medical examiner said, well, we're going to put findings down as pending further investigation. Nevertheless, a week later, the chief medical examiner changed the manner of death to suicide, and the Epstein family wants to know why that change was made. What happened in that week between the time of the autopsy and the time the report was made that changed it from pending further investigation to suicide? And that's what prompted the Epstein family to authorize Dr. Baden to appear on Fox and Friends to discuss what he observed at the autopsy and to, in effect, prod the authorities to release further information about the investigation.
What was wrapped around it? What did he use to allegedly kill himself with? Was it a bed sheet, pajamas? Which was it?
Well, they have sheets. It was described to me, orange sheets at the Metropolitan Correctional Facility, which is a federal lockup in Manhattan. And depending on the reports, I haven't gotten confirmation of this, but one inmate has said that those sheets are made out of paper, which doesn't mean, by the way, that they can't be twisted and used as a ligature. But in any event, it was supposed to be torn strips of bed sheet, which were used to make the ligature.
You write. I'm sorry. You write about Baden also saying he found it strange that he hadn't been contacted by federal authorities since everybody involved in the autopsy should be consulted about it.
Yeah. Since Biden was present, and he is a terrific forensic pathologist, he expected that anyone conducting a thorough investigation would have consulted him and everyone else, for that matter, who was present at the autopsy. And as he reports, he was not consulted, and he's wondering why. But one of the points that he makes is whoever made that ligature would have had to have put a lot of DNA on it in the process of making it. And if the FBI, since this happened in a federal lockup, the FBI would be the investigative agency. Does the FBI have the ligature, and have they tested it for DNA? Yeah. At the autopsy, they tested all of Epstein's clothing for DNA, but apparently they didn't take swabs from the ligature. The ligature is presumably in the possession of the FBI. And as Biden has pointed out, it only takes a few days now to get DNA results back. So whose DNA is on that ligature? And that's a very important question. The other thing is they took fingernail clippings from the body to test for DNA, and we don't know what the DNA results from the fingernail clippings.
Biden said that his observations don't mean that this was homicide, but they do mean that it certainly deserves investigation. And as a former federal prosecutor or state prosecutor, I want to get your spidey sense on this too. It's the combination of the autopsy, but also other things that I don't know if there's been enough of a reckoning on with respect to the incident with the security officers being asleep, ostensibly. And just how unusual it is for someone to die in federal custody, for something like this to happen, and sort of which is more improbable, what happened as it's been reported, or somebody actually getting in and being able to murder Jeffrey Epstein in custody?
Well, if you play the probabilities, I would say that I have to agree with Dr. Biden that. Number one, it's extremely unlikely that you're going to have two guards fall asleep at the same time. And also the video cameras surrounding Epstein's cell, they were inoperative. And, you got to wonder how all of that happened in regard to probably the most important inmate in that facility. How is it that two guards fall asleep at the same time? Biden, by the way, has been investigating inmate deaths in the New York State prison system for the last 50 years. And he says in his experience, he's never seen anything like this. And I have to defer to his expertise in that regard. So, yeah, plus, here's another thing that points in the direction of this being a homicide. The hyoid bone, which is a horseshoe-shaped bone just above the Adam's apple, below the chin and just above the Adam's apple, and the thyroid cartilage and the cricoid cartilage were fractured. And that is more commonly seen in the case of ligature strangulation, where a great deal of force is applied, than seen in situations where someone is hung. It's not impossible for hanging to result in that. And as a matter of fact, in previous articles on this subject, I've cited the medical literature, which shows that the older a person is, the greater the calcification of those structures are, and that it is possible to fracture them by means of hanging. But again, I have to defer to Biden's expertise. He's done 20,000 autopsies.
Yeah, he even did Aaron Hernandez, who also killed himself in prison.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know.
But I mean, if we're going to go down the road of a possible homicide, then again, the guards, as far as I know, haven't been implicated in any way other than dereliction of duty. So, so what's the you know, but better than we do, the probability that somebody can get into that facility undetected and out undetected, and the coordination that would be required to pull that off?
Well, you don't need to get somebody in and get them out. I mean, the guy's surrounded by 799 inmates who would be more than happy to kill him.
Okay. Somebody into his
so
cell,
they're
then.
already... Well, the question becomes, and again, we don't know any of this. Was the cell locked?
Yeah.
In some of these facilities, they don't even have bars on cells. So I don't know the answer to that. But the fact of the matter is, he died under highly suspicious circumstances. And there are certain things that can be done to provide some definitive answers. Number one, testing the DNA on the ligature to see if anybody else touched that ligature. And number two, what did they find from the fingernail clippings? Presumably Epstein would have fought for his life if someone was trying to do this to him, and he might have been able to get their DNA underneath his fingernail clippings.
And his lawyer said he was and the lawyers too say he was in great spirits the night before. They had spent 8 hours with him or something during the day, and then into the early evening, and then he went back to his cell. And they said, he was going to fight this. He was upbeat and happy.
So can we expect some sort of formal wrap up report from the federal investigation into his death?
Well, there should be. I can tell you this. I was at a dinner in Washington not an intimate dinner, I might add. There were 30 of us. But the Attorney General was present, and he was asked what was his reaction when he found out that Epstein had died, and he just expressed utter exasperation and anger when he found out that Epstein had died in federal custody. He used a one-word expletive, which I can't repeat, to characterize the way he felt. So I know that the Attorney General wants answers, and the Attorney General is a very serious man, and I expect that there will be a definitive report. I did see a news blurb the other day that there had been about 20 subpoenas issued to guards and other personnel at the center to find, or the facility. So presumably the investigation is continuing to find out how it is that this top prize valued inmate wound up dead in federal custody.
He is a former federal and state prosecutor, regular contributor to the Philadelphia Inquirer and blogs at knowledgeisgood.net. George Parry, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Nice to be with you.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Now that winter's here, how's your fireplace and chimney? Before you light the first fire, have your chimney cleaned and inspected by Chicagoland's most trusted fireplace and chimney company. The experts at Fireplace and Chimney Authority will give your family peace of mind that your fireplace is safe and works properly all season long. And if you call today, get $45 off a cleaning and inspection. You'll be all set. Since 1995, Fireplace and Chimney Authority has been the